Hi everybody, my name is Jess Graham and this is my video for AEP 867 Assignment 5. I wanted to start with a little bit of a recap about what my teaching unit was. So I decided to do a writing unit that revolves around the Revolutionary War. We've been talking about it in social studies, so for writing my kids had to choose a Revolutionary War figure and write a research paper on that person. They have to take notes. They have to write an informational paper, and then they have to give a presentation on their figure. In that presentation, they have to basically give a speech and have some sort of visual aid that goes along with that project. Okay, so do the tasks yield appropriate evidence of the identified understandings? So throughout my unit, I have different lessons that I know I'm going to teach. Like, for example, in lesson 1, we go over the materials that I've provided them on Google Classroom and the expectations of what they need to do, and we go over the rubric so that they know here's what exactly what they have to do, here's what they're going to get graded on, so they can keep those things in mind as they work. And then as they work, some lessons that we go over are evaluating websites for credibility, and that's a lesson that we've done several times throughout the year, but anytime we're going to do some research, we go back over that. We talk about note-taking and how to put it in our own words and not plagiarize. We did a lesson on bibliographies this time around, and then as students work through the unit, through their writing paper, if I see like pretty much the entire class is making a mistake, then we'll talk about that in a mini lesson, or I might have mini lessons with just one kid or even small groups of kids if I have groups of kids that are making the same mistake. And as we do conferencing and things with the students, we talk about, well, what would you get on the, what score would you give yourself on the rubric for this category? So they definitely have lots of opportunities to show what they know. Do the tasks involve a complex real-world application of the identified knowledge, skill, and understandings? I definitely think we are working on real-world skills. Evaluating websites for credibility. Some of my kids think that just because it's on the internet, it's automatically true, no matter what. And we need to work on saying, well, people don't always put true things on the internet, and we talk about Wikipedia and why I don't allow them to use Wikipedia. And we talk about things that people put on there just to stir things up. It also gives us the opportunity to work on digital citizenship. We learn how to cite sources and give credit to authors and how not to plagiarize. Writing skills, I think, are becoming kind of a lost art with today's kiddos. It takes a lot of work to get them away from text talk and writing in a more formal manner. They can write, conversational things all day long, but if you ask them to write something more formal, it's really a struggle for them. Also, the reason I have my kids do oral presentations is that I think it's like 19 out of my 25 kids are ELL students, and they need to practice their speaking skills in English. I don't have anyone right now who is completely non-English. Even my lowest speakers have a fairly good amount of conversational English, and they need to practice. So that gives them the opportunity to do that in an environment that's a little safer than out in the wild, I guess you could call it. Are a variety of appropriate assessment formats used to provide additional evidence of learning? So I do a lot of informal assessment, I guess you could call it, throughout. Every day I try to get through every student. I don't always get to every student, but I get to as many as I can. And we have a conference about what's going well, what they need help with. I can give, a quick little mini lesson if it's to just them, if it's something that just they need. And I do that throughout the duration of the unit. They have rubrics for what they know their end products will be graded on. And they have the opportunity to show their learning in a written format, in an oral format, and through the creation of some sort of visual aid. It could be a video, it could be a poster, it could be an infographic that they make online. It doesn't matter to me so much what specifically they make, as long as they have something to show. Are students given the opportunity to self-assess and reflect upon their learning and performance? Like I said earlier, every time I call a kid up to conference with them, we start off with what's going well and what they're struggling with, so they know they're going to have to think about those things every day. And that's really helped a lot. So they know what they're awesome at and what they need a little bit of help with. Helps them take ownership of their learning. And then also they get the opportunity to share interesting information about their person with the class. It's supposed to be at the end of the writing day, writing time, but generally it turns out to be that they find out something interesting and they yell it out to the class, and everyone's like, oh, I didn't know that. I'm going to see if my person does that. Writing's not very quiet in my room. Things I would change. First of all, I don't know if I will be teaching this unit again in the future, because we're adopting a new writing, well, not necessarily new, we're adopting a writing curriculum for next year, and I don't know yet if this is going to fit in there. But if I were to teach it again, one thing I would definitely do is, when I teach them about bibliographies, I need to give them more chances to practice that kind of with a partner before I expect them to do it on their own. They're doing okay with it, but I would have saved myself a lot of headaches if I had done a little bit more intentional practice with that. I also need to do a better job of giving them examples of how to take their notes and put that in an organized paragraph where the organization makes sense, because I've seen several of them, like they'll talk about family and then they'll talk about like jobs, and then they'll go back to family, and it just kind of jumps a little too much. Their sentences make sense, but they need to be organized a little bit better. I tried using a different format for how I wanted them to do their notes, and it wasn't a good idea. I'm going to go back to, they're really familiar with 2-column notes. It's an Avid strategy, and I'm going to go back to that, because a lot of them ended up putting it in 2 columns anyway, so I should have just left it. Also, we're not actually done with this unit yet. We're about at the halfway point, and I'm going to include this now because I know I want to do it. I'm going to record their presentations and then have them go back and watch themselves, because I already know some of them are going to talk so fast because they're nervous that you're not going to be able to understand what they're saying even, and some of them don't realize that they're doing that. So by recording their presentations and giving them a chance to watch themselves, I'm hoping that will help them be like, oh, yeah, I am doing that. She's not just making it up. That's something I need to work on. And here's my references. Thanks!